Hello, everyone. My name is Raven, and welcome to Raven67854 Gaming, and welcome to my Godot 4 light mapping tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to first learn how to set up objects inside of Blender to be used inside of Godot 4 in order to create light maps. So, we're going to create a really basic scene, and first off, keep in mind this is not a Blender tutorial, so I might go a little quick on this initial part, but I will do my best to explain what I'm doing. So I'm selecting those, and I hit X, and then I selected delete. I'm going to select the cube, and then I'm going to hit in, and I'm going to set it to 20, 20, and 1. Then I'm going to Control A, and I'm going to apply the scale, and then I'm going to hit in to close that window because we don't need it anymore. And now the next thing I am going to do is I am going to just... I'm just going to extrude a couple pieces here, and you hit E to extrude, and Shift left click to select. And let's see here, do E, and then we'll do 5. Okay, perfect. So now we have some nice little walls to act as, you know, a lovely little barrier, I suppose. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to create a new mesh. And this mesh is going to be used to cast a light. And so it's going to be like really, really basic. So I'm actually just going to put it up against the wall here. And then basically I'm just going to drag it straight up so that it's perfectly on with the wall there. Then I'm going to select the bottom part. I'm going to hit G and Z, and I'm just going to lower it just a little bit more. Okay. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it cast downwards. And then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one more cube that is solely existing. And I hit 1 on the numpad, by the way, to go to front orthographic view. And same thing as before. I'm just going to, drag it out a little bit. Because we're not trying to make like the most perfect thing ever. 7 to go into top orthographic view. And I think I'll make it a little bigger than that. Oop, hit the wrong thing there. Okay. So, yeah, that should be fine. So now I'm going to select everything. I'm going to hit A to select everything. Control J to, make everything one object. And then I'm going to hit Tab and then A. And then I'm going to do a Smart UV project. Don't really have to do this point because we're going to use triplanar texturing, but, it's a habit. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to apply all the materials. So we're going to make one material. We're going to call it Mat 1. And basically, this is going to be for all the floors. And we're going to make a new texture. We're going to call it Mat 2. And this is going to be for all the walls. Anything that's a wall. Don't really have to do these backs here, but we're going to do it anyway. And I'll just go on ahead and select the sides. Why not? Let's keep stuff pretty uniform. Now we're going to select Material 2, and we're going to hit Assign. And the last but not least is this underside here. I don't know how well this will actually be visible, but we'll give it a shot. And we'll call it Material 3, and then we'll just assign it. Okay. So now we're pretty much done. So now we have to hit this little like greenish triangle for the object data, and we select the UV maps, then we hit the plus sign, and ta-da! So now what we have is a second UV, which is very, very important if you want to bake UV maps, because Godot cannot create second UVs by default inside of Godot. So now we're just going to export as an OBJ. I'm going to export it to the desktop, and I already have made a test object, so I'm just going to overwrite it. And in geometry, we want to select triangulate faces, and as well as selection only, because it'll limit to whatever object we have selected. Again, more of a habit thing, but not necessary since there's nothing else in this Blender project. And I will just hit export object. And we will now go to Godot. So the only thing you need is the Godot 4 Alpha, and I'll have a link to the actual news, and hopefully, a new one comes out every 2 weeks. So I'll link to the news page and for the version that I'm using, but depending on when you're watching this video, it might even just be a regular download. Okay, so I'm going to select the meshes folder and just drag and drop. Okay, so the only thing I've really done with this scene is I made some changes inside of the project settings, like I increased the anisotropic filters and I made some adjustments with like the shadows and stuff like that to make them look a little better and so forth. But a lot of this stuff isn't really necessary. But one thing to note is the light map setting in the project. So you can update the probe capture speed. You can update the ray counts for both the probes and the actual light map casting itself. Now, we're going to leave all this by default, but what I will say, if you want a better looking light map, increase the rays, but it does eventually reach a point of diminishing returns. Eventually, you have tons of rays, but you're not really going to, get a better quality necessarily. So if that happens, you're going to have to figure it out. And also, one thing to note, it does run on the CPU. And while it is multi-core optimized, it will lock up the main core still. Or it just uses so much of the CPU, which might actually be possible that it doesn't, nothing else becomes responsive. So I highly recommend you have a dedicated machine for baking light maps if you have one, so it can just run over there in the background. Okay, so we're going to close this because, again, we're going to keep this default. You feel free to play around with these settings to get like whatever you want, but increase the ray counts to get better quality, really. And we're just going to close there, or necessarily, but should get better quality. And we're going to create a new 3D scene, and we'll just leave the name by default. And we're going to create a world environment, and the reason we're doing this is so that it doesn't have any of the default settings. And we're going to create a new environment, and a background, and a sky. And then we're going to select sky, and new sky, and then select sky, and then new physical sky material. And for the tone map, we're going to change it to filmic. And if you want to, you can turn on SSAO or SSIL, which is the screen space indirect lighting. But I'm going to leave all that off for now. The next thing we want to do is, as you can see, I've already tested inside of this project just to make sure it all works. We're going to create a new mesh instance 3D. And I'm going to call this light model, I guess. Doesn't really matter what it's called. And I'm just going to drag the object over to here. Perfect. And for some reason, there is 2 of them. For some bizarre, unknown reason. Okay, there it goes. Wow, that was weird. Okay, alpha software. Weird stuff happens. For global illumination, for the mode, we're going to set it to static so you can see the differences here. Dynamic is only voxel GI. And we are going to save, and we're just going to call this Lightmap test. And hit enter. And now inside of our textures, I'm going to make a new resource. And I'm just going to search for materials, and we're just going to create a standard 3D material. Hit create. I'm going to call this mat underscore, or just mat1, and we'll just leave it at the default T-res there. And we're going to go back to our light model here, and I am going to go into our surface 1, which is named material 1, and I'm just going to plonk it right on in here, and I'm going to click it. I'm going to select our albedo, and I'm going to select our texture 1, and as you can see, it applied to everything appropriately. And I'm going to go down to UV, and I am going to select triplanar. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the scale to 0.5 so it's not as big. And to fix the blurriness with the way the bitmaps and stuff work, I'm going to set it to linear bitmap anisotropic. And as you can see, it looks much better now. And now I'm just going to repeat that process for the next material, which will be material 2. And I'm going to go back to our light map here. I'm going to select surface 2, and I'm just going to drop in material 2. And wait a minute. I've created an ORM material. I was wondering why that was looking like that. Okay, not what I wanted. I wanted to delete this right here. Okay, let's try that again. I selected the wrong one by mistake. Okay, we'll call this mat2. Okay, so now we'll go back to our light model there, and we'll just replace. Are you serious? I really don't think that I did that. Let me try that again really quick, because I definitely selected standard material that time. What on earth? Okay, well, seems fine. I don't know. It's just, it's weird with, whatever. Let's move on. We'll select the texture. And just like before, we'll select triplanar, and then we'll set it to 0.5. And then we will go into UV and, oh, sorry, I meant sampling there. And we'll set it to linear. Ah, I know what's causing that. I think I do anyway. Anyhow, we'll fix that in a second if it continues to be an issue. Just zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go up here to view. I'm going to turn off the grid and the origin because I just want to focus, on what's here in front of me. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is new resource, standard material, and we'll name this one Mat 3. And for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a mission. I'm going to set it to 10. I think 10 will be enough. And then I'm just going to make it pure white. And I'm going to select the light model here. And I'm going to put it in surface 3. Now, you could also have put it in the surface material overrides, should you have wanted to. And we already set up our global illumination. Okay, awesome. So we're basically ready now for, well, everything. All right, hang on. I think I know what's causing that weird. I don't know if you guys can see it because of the compression, but I'm about 100% convinced it's because the SSAO stuff is set. No, it's not. I don't actually genuinely don't know what's causing that one. It's probably just an alpha bug. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create our own directional light. And I'm going to just turn it this way. And then I'm just going to turn it down. Actually, let's go to shadow and turn on shadows. Perfect. I want it kind of steep, but not too steep. And then we'll just kind of, yeah, there we go. Okay, so under light, we want to set it to static because we're going to bake this. And for indirect energy, I'm going to set it to 1.5. And we'll save it again. And it looks pretty good, as is. This is just default out of the box. Like, Godot 4 is very pretty for, an open source engine. So, now what we need is we need a Lightmap. And there's two things we need. We need Lightmap GI and Lightmap Probe. And the Lightmap probes are for, like, your player objects or anything that's moving. It'll kind of like transfer light over to it. And we're going to go ahead and just create our Lightmap probe. I'm going to drag these up. I'm going to put the directional light above everything as well. Okay, so you'll notice, like, unlike Godot 3, if you've ever used Godot 3, there's no bounds because it's not bound anymore, which is very nice. So you just plonk it in and plonk in your probes, and it'll just calculate everything based on, where stuff is, which is really cool. Okay, so the first things first, tweaks. Quality, like we talked about before, that is the number of rays, and this will affect your overall quality for GI, shadows, all that sort of stuff. We're going to set this to ultra. We're going to set the number of bounces to 6. Now, directional lighting. Directional lighting is really useful, like if you have normal maps and, your roughness data, and you want your light map to take, like, the light direction into account. We don't have any of that, so we're just going to skip it. It will create a better quality light map, though, if you use those things, because if you don't, your normal maps will not be used and stuff will look very flat. However, it does take up a little bit more video memory, disk space, and it's a little bit more computationally expensive, but, again, still fairly cheap. Interior just only affects the interior. It doesn't take account to the scene and stuff. More like, the sky and so forth, just direct lighting. So we're just going to leave that off. And of course, we're going to use the denoiser and the max texture size. We'll leave it alone. For environment, we're going to set it to scene. For probes, we're just going to generate 8 probes. And I'm just going to save it. So the only thing we need to do now is bake the light maps. And when we go to bake the light maps, it's going to make this little pop-up. And it's going to have the Lightmap test. And it's going to be an LM bake, which is the Lightmap Bake file, which stores all of the textures and so forth. And I'm going to pause it while it does this because it is going to probably lock up Godot until it's done. So we're just going to pause this really quick. Okay, I just realized I forgot, like, the single most important step, and I cannot believe I forgot it. So when you import, you have to go down here on mesh. When you select your mesh, go to mesh and unwrap UV2 for Lightmap. I can't believe I forgot it. Right. Forgot. Blender 3, oh, sorry, Blender. Godot 4 is kind of unique in that you just need to mark this as unique. So select this drop down and click make unique, and then go back over to mesh and then select UV unwrap 2. Boom, you're done. Okay, now we can go back to Lightmap GI and we can do a bake, and it will bake. I apologize for that. That should have been way sooner, but it's all good. Okay, and we're back. Awesome. So what you see here is the Lightmap Baked, and it actually does a pretty good job. Now we could fix the textures having the weird artifacts, but that has nothing to do with the Lightmap. And what these little things are, they're visual, obviously they're the probes that were created. And it actually does a pretty good job optimizing them. Like there's no wall here, so it just only has this one probe in the corner, and there's no other objects. So it actually does a really nice job. And you can see this light is like super bright. And if there was, if there had been a static object here or something that was marked as static, it would have even baked in shadows. But yeah, so there you go. Now you have light maps, and they actually do look like really, really nice. And, the other nice thing is much like in Godot 3 and all, I'll just drag this up here. If we kind of it does affect the lighting. Now, one thing that is very interesting is that even though it's underneath this, it actually doesn't take into account the emissive lighting, only the directional lighting. And it's possible that that would actually be fixed if you used a directional bake. I'm not actually 100% sure on that. We should probably test that. So I'm going to make a directional light map now, and I'm just going to pause it and bake, and we're going to see. I don't think that that'll fix this particular issue at hand, but just want to make this a little bigger. Because, yeah, the point I'm making here is that it does, so like when it's over here, it's quite well lit, and then as it gets closer, it's pretty nice. But real quick before I do this bake, some limitations are you do not have, like, dynamic objects like that right there do not cast shadows at all. I have no idea if they're working on that, but as of this video, it does not cast shadows. I hope that they eventually add that feature because that'd be really nice. So anyway, we're just going to go ahead and do this bake really quick just to see if it'll take into account the emissive data or the emissive light. But I don't think it will because this is technically not a light. It's just casted onto the texture. So it shouldn't, but let's see. Okay. So, as expected, no, it didn't, and I was pretty much convinced that it wouldn't there, but, never hurts to experiment. But when you get out over here, where this overhang is not blocking the sun, it does. Anyhow, so that's how you make light maps inside of Godot, and if you want to get these, like, little things off, you can go up to Gizmos, and you can actually select Lightmap Lightmap GI. You can leave the probe on, but you can deselect the GI there. And this probe doesn't really do anything other than it just needs to be in here. And then you can see what it looks like. And actually, like I said, it looks really, really nice. Like this bakes really good, clean, light maps. I mean, the shadows are a little dark because, they're kind of been, blended out, but they are there. You can see them. They're still there. And of course, if you turn off the light map, it goes right back to being, real time. So, thanks everyone for watching. Sorry about that little mess up there at the, for the baking, or sorry, with the mesh not selecting the unwrap for UV2. That was my bad. I should have done that sooner. Anyhow, so links to everything in the description. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by, joining the YouTube membership. It gets you access to, everything quite early. You get videos early. You get member-exclusive videos. As well, you also get some other additional perks. There's actually quite a lot more coming And also, don't forget to join the Discord, because if you have any issues, I'm only really going to answer them on Discord. I'm not going to do it inside the YouTube comment section. It's terrible. Yeah, so I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good evening, day, morning, whatever time of the day it is for you. Have a lovely one.